When a shocking video leaks online, Jungkook's father is forced to confront a buried secret, and Jimin becomes the key to a truth that could destroy everything. Turn it off, now. Jungkook's father, Jeon Minhyuk, rarely raised his voice. But in the dim glow of the Jeon family's private screening room, his words struck like thunder, silencing the room. The massive OLED screen went dark mid-frame, freezing Jimin's bloodied face, and the sound of a crowd screaming his name into a haunting silence. Minhyuk's hand trembled as he pressed the remote against his knee, his knuckles white. Sweat trickled down his temple, unnoticed. He stared at the blank screen like it had just read his sins aloud. "What was that?" he asked, his voice no longer booming but brittle, like an old man trying to steady himself on a crumbling foundation. Jungkook, seated 2 seats away, didn't respond. His jaw was tight, eyes still fixed on the place where the video had been. He hadn't blinked once since it started. The silence between father and son felt more suffocating than the video itself. Minhyuk stood abruptly, the leather seat creaking beneath his weight. "Who leaked it?" Jungkook slowly turned his head, finally meeting his father's eyes. "Does it matter?" he said, voice low, heavy. "You saw it. You saw everything." The air was thick with tension. Outside, the soft hum of summer cicadas swelled beyond the high walls of the Jeon estate, a stark contrast to the storm brewing indoors. The video had dropped an hour earlier on an anonymous social media account, racking up millions of views in minutes. Footage taken 3 years ago at a closed-door rehearsal hall in Busan. It showed Jimin, barely 19, collapsed on the floor, chest heaving, his cries muffled by the thunder of security boots. It showed him being dragged out of frame. It showed Jeon Minhyuk in the corner, turning his back. "You said he was unstable," Jungkook said, his voice laced with disbelief. "You said he left the group because of burnout." Minhyuk's eyes narrowed, the mask of corporate calm cracking. He was becoming a liability. He wanted to expose things that could have destroyed all of you. "He didn't want to expose us," Jungkook snapped. "He wanted to protect us. From you." In that moment, the memory hit Minhyuk like a freight train. The rehearsal room's sterile white walls. Jimin's voice, desperate, trembling. The accusations. The threat. The look of betrayal when Minhyuk had chosen silence over salvation. Jungkook was still watching him, his gaze unreadable. "Why now?" he asked. "Why leak it now?" "I don't know," Minhyuk muttered, almost to himself. He rubbed his face, fingers digging into his temples as if he could physically erase the image. "But I need to fix this. Before the board calls for my resignation. Before the world—" "No." Jungkook's voice was firm. "You don't fix this for them. You fix this for him." The screen flickered back on. Jungkook hit play. The final seconds of the video showed Jimin looking directly into the camera, lips parted, face streaked with sweat and tears. "If this ever sees the light of day," he said, barely a whisper, "remember, I didn't fall. I was pushed." The room fell silent again, colder now. Jeon Minhyuk sank into his seat, defeated. The next morning, the world woke up to a press conference they never expected. In front of flashing cameras, Jeon Minhyuk bowed low, his first public act of contrition in decades. "I owe Park Jimin more than an apology," he said, voice shaking. "I owe him the truth." But the truth was never simple. As reporters shouted questions and hashtags exploded online, one thing became clear: this was just the beginning. Because somewhere in Seoul, Jimin was watching, and he wasn't sure if he wanted forgiveness or revenge. "Tell me you didn't know." Jungkook's voice cracked as he stepped through the glass doors of the rooftop suite, his fists clenched, the city lights of Seoul glittering behind him like a mockery of everything that just collapsed. Taehyung looked up from his glass of whiskey, brows furrowed. "Know what?" That Jimin was blacklisted. A pause, just long enough to confirm what Jungkook feared. Taehyung stood slowly, setting his drink down with deliberate care, as if sudden movement might set off a bomb. "It wasn't my call, Kook." "You knew," Jungkook said louder now. "All this time, you knew what happened to him. And you let me think, hell, you let everyone think he just broke under pressure. That he quit. Because he was breaking," Taehyung shouted back, his voice raw. He was digging into things none of us were ready to face. He kept pushing, asking questions about contracts, missing money, about what happened to the trainee who disappeared in 2019. "You think Minhyuk would let that slide?" Then why didn't we protect him? Silence. Taehyung looked away, hands trembling now. Because we were scared. The word hung in the air, like smoke, heavy, suffocating. Behind them, Namjoon entered the suite, having heard the tail end of the conversation. He didn't say anything at first, just walked to the minibar and poured himself a drink with a mechanical precision that betrayed his tension. "He's coming back," he said finally. "Jimin." Jungkook turned sharply. "What?" Namjoon nodded slowly. "He landed in Incheon 2 hours ago. He's staying at a private residence in Mapo. Press hasn't found him yet, but it's only a matter of time." Taehyung sat back down heavily. "So what now? He exposes everything? The label? The investors? Our silence?" "No," Jungkook said, eyes dark. "He wants something else." Namjoon raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" "Because I saw the rest of the video." The room stilled. Even the distant hum of the city felt like it faded out. "There's more?" Taehyung asked. Jungkook nodded. "Another 30 seconds. He recorded a message for me." He pulled out his phone and played the final clip. Jimin's face reappeared on screen, bruised but composed, like someone who had accepted the storm. His voice was steadier now. "If Jungkook sees this," he said, "I'm sorry I left like that. I didn't want you to hate me. I didn't want you to see what I saw. But I need you to remember who we were before all of this. Before the lights. Before the lies. I need you to remember me." The clip ended. No one spoke for several seconds. "He doesn't want revenge," Jungkook said quietly. "He wants justice. And maybe a little bit of us back." Namjoon drained his glass in one long swallow. "Then we have a problem. Because if he starts talking, there are people who'll do anything to shut him up. And not just in the industry. This goes higher. Politics, money, power." Taehyung shook his head. "He's walking into fire." "No," Jungkook said. "We are." The next evening, a private dinner was arranged in Mapo. No managers, no security, just the 4 of them. When Jimin walked into the room, the air shifted. He looked different. Not older, not colder, but tempered, like steel that had survived the forge. His hair was darker, cropped shorter. The bruises from the video were gone, but the weight in his eyes hadn't changed. Jungkook stood as soon as he saw him. The two stared at each other, years of unresolved pain crackling between them like static. "You came," Jimin said. "You called," Jungkook replied. They didn't hug. There was no warmth, no soft reunion. Just a fragile silence and 4 plates of untouched food. Namjoon cleared his throat. "We owe you an apology, Jimin." "No," Jimin said, sitting down. "You owe me the truth. And this time, I want all of it." The floodgates broke. Namjoon admitted the board meetings, the sealed documents, the payoffs, the security team instructed to keep Jimin contained. Taehyung confessed the internal vote. 3 out of 5 members had agreed to let the label handle the Jimin situation rather than go public. Only Jungkook had voted no, but he'd been outnumbered and overruled. Jimin listened, silent. He didn't cry, he didn't scream, but his hands, resting on the table, had gone white with tension. When they finished, he leaned back, exhaled, and finally spoke. "You were my brothers," he said. "I would have died for you." "You almost did," Jungkook whispered. Jimin stood. "This doesn't end with a dinner. I'm going public. I don't want your pity, and I'm not here to negotiate." Namjoon frowned. "You'll be destroyed." "Maybe," Jimin said, "but I won't disappear again. I'd rather burn with the truth than survive with a lie." He left without looking back. 3 hours later, a live stream appeared on an anonymous account. Jimin, seated in front of a plain white backdrop, spoke directly into the camera. "I was silenced. I was betrayed. And now, I'm done staying quiet." The video spread like wildfire, and by morning, the world had chosen sides. "You're trending in 26 countries. #1 worldwide." Yoongi's voice came through the phone like a slow-moving avalanche, quiet, but with the weight of something unstoppable. Jimin stood at the edge of a rooftop, the wind tugging at his coat. His phone pressed to one ear, eyes scanning the horizon like he was waiting for the past to rise up from the Seoul skyline. "I didn't do it for the hashtags," he said flatly. "I know," Yoongi replied. But the machine's awake now. You can't stop it. Neither can they. Jimin didn't answer. The sky above him was slate gray, heavy with summer rain, like even the heavens were holding their breath. Behind him, the door creaked open. He turned. Jungkook, hair messy, sweatshirt damp from the drizzle, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept since the broadcast. "You should have told me," he said. Jimin didn't flinch. "Would you have believed me?" Jungkook's jaw clenched. "Don't do that. Don't shut me out again." "I didn't shut you out," Jimin said, voice low. "I was dragged out, kicked, silenced. You saw the footage." "I saw it. I lived through the aftermath of it. You think it didn't destroy me? You moved on." Jungkook took a step closer, rain starting to patter against the rooftop. "I survived, Jimin. That's not the same as moving on." There was a pause, just long enough for the air between them to ache. "Do you know what they're saying now?" Jungkook continued. "That you're lying, that the video was deep-faked, that this is all a smear campaign for attention." "I expected that," Jimin said. "That's why I have more." "What do you mean?" Jimin pulled a flash drive from his coat pocket. Sleek, black, unassuming. Security footage, emails, audio. From the day they tried to shut me down. Where the hell did you get that? Someone on the inside. Someone who owed me a debt. Jungkook stared at the flash drive like it was a bomb. "If you leak this, then they'll burn," Jimin said, stepping past him. "And I'll finally be free." Across town, Jeon Minhyuk was not sleeping. His office looked like a war zone. Papers strewn. Screens glowing with reports, legal drafts, and statements marked urgent. His lawyer paced behind him. "We can still spin this, sir. Say the video was edited, manipulate metadata, release your own footage." "It's too late," Minhyuk muttered, eyes locked on the live news feed playing silently in the corner. "The narrative slipped from our hands. You need to go on record, deny it, reframe it." "No," he said slowly. "I need to bury it." A moment of silence. The lawyer looked at him unsettled. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Minhyuk's gaze darkened. "I mean we make Jimin go away." Again, the words hung in the air like poison. Jimin knew they'd come. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat on the floor of his apartment, headphones in, staring at the files on the screen. Evidence. Names. Dates. And the folder labeled Hybe Burn Protocol. He hesitated, then opened it. Images. Internal memos. A spreadsheet detailing black-budget operations tied to artist manipulation, vote rigging, media suppression, and one image. A photo of the 2019 missing trainee. Face blurred, time-stamped. Standing in the same rehearsal room where Jimin had once bled. His heart stopped. A knock on the door made him jump. He stood, approached. "Who is it?" "It's me, Taehyung." Jimin opened the door slowly. Taehyung stood there, hoodie soaked, hair matted with rain, expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," he said. Jimin raised an eyebrow. "For what exactly? Voting me out? Staying quiet? Watching me get dragged like a criminal?" Taehyung looked like he'd swallowed glass. "For all of it." There was a silence that stretched thin and sharp. "I wasn't brave," he admitted. "I thought I was protecting us, but I was just protecting me." Jimin studied him. "Why are you here now?" "Because I think they're coming after you, and I'm not letting them take you again." Jimin stepped aside. Taehyung entered. They didn't hug, but they sat down, together. 30 minutes later, a car pulled up outside the building. Black, unmarked. Inside, a man in a suit checked his watch. "Confirmed. Subjects inside." The driver nodded. In the apartment above, Jimin stared at the screen. "Taehyung," he said slowly. "If I told you there's a list of artists they've hurt, manipulated, disappeared, would you help me release it?" Taehyung didn't hesitate. "Yes," Jimin's voice cracked. "Even if it ends your career? My career's already over if I stay a coward." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Jimin stood. "They're here." The screen went black. A pounding knock at the door. "Open up. Security check." Taehyung looked at him. Window. Too late. The door handle jiggled. Then silence. A single envelope slid under the door. Jimin picked it up. Torn seal. No name. Inside, a USB. Unlabeled. and a note. You were never supposed to see this. As sirens echoed in the distance and thunder rolled over Seoul, Jimin plugged in the USB. What he saw next made his knees buckle, because it wasn't about him anymore. It was about all of them. Tell me this isn't real, Taehyung whispered. Jimin didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes were frozen to the screen, lips slightly parted, hands trembling at his sides. The video was grainy, time-stamped 6 months before the incident that ended his career. In it, a young trainee, maybe 16, stood alone in the same hallway Jimin had been dragged through, eyes wide, shaking. Then the camera jolted violently, like it had been dropped or kicked. Screaming followed, male voice, muffled, frantic, the sound of someone begging, and then silence. A door slammed. The screen cut to black. A second video auto-played. This time it was audio only, low quality but unmistakably Minhyuk's voice. He saw the ledger. He knows about the off-the-book trainees. If this gets out, it's not just a scandal. We're talking full collapse. CEOs, investors, government. Handle it quietly. Another voice responded, clipped and cold. What about the kid? Minhyuk's reply was ice. Make him disappear. Jimin paused the video. The silence that followed was unbearable. The air felt like lead pressing down on their lungs. Taehyung was the first to speak again, his voice dry. Do you understand what this is? I think it's a kill order, Jimin said hoarsely. And this just landed at your door? Someone wants it out, Jimin muttered. Someone on the inside, or someone who's already on the run. Taehyung stood up, pacing. If this leaks, it's no longer a scandal. It's a criminal investigation. This is conspiracy, Jimin. This is jail time for half the industry. Jimin finally tore his eyes from the screen and looked up. That's exactly why it needs to be seen. You'll be hunted, Taehyung said. We both will. We already are. Jimin unplugged the USB, slipping it into his pocket. I need to see Yoongi, now. Yoongi lived in a minimalist studio on the edge of Itaewon, a place lined with soundproof walls, unfinished lyrics pinned to corkboards, and a single synth keyboard that sat like an altar under the window. He didn't look surprised when Jimin and Taehyung arrived, soaked from rain and panic. You got it, didn't you? He asked without preamble. Jimin handed him the USB. Yoongi plugged it in, watched in silence. When it ended, he stood up and walked to his speaker system. He turned the volume dial all the way up to max and kept it playing static. Paranoia, precaution, self-defense. They're listening, he said simply. They always are. Yoongi, Jimin said. Who else knows about this? Me. And now you. Taehyung stared. How long have you had it? I didn't. It only surfaced 2 weeks ago. Someone sent it anonymously to my burner inbox, then wiped the IP. Why didn't you go public? Because I knew they'd kill whoever did. Jimin met Yoongi's eyes. So you let me be the one they target. Yoongi didn't blink. You already were. I just decided to stop standing on the sidelines. A long beat passed. The sound of rain tapping against the window was the only noise. Taehyung finally said, So what's the play? Jimin stepped forward. We go live. We leak it all. We name names. We burn the whole thing down. Yoongi tilted his head. You sure you're ready for that kind of war? I don't want a war, Jimin said. I want the truth. And if I have to go down with it, then so be it. Yoongi looked at him for a long time, then nodded. Okay, I know a secure server, off-grid, encrypted. We leak it through there, but we'll need a face, a public one. I'll do it, Jimin said immediately. No, Taehyung cut in. Let me. Both turned to him. If they take you out before the message lands, he said to Jimin, everything dies with you. Let me be the face. You stay underground, anonymous. Yoongi shook his head. They'll come after you just as hard. Good, Taehyung said. Let them try. Back at the Jeon estate, Minhyuk was spiraling. His assistant burst into the room. Sir, you need to see this. She handed him a tablet. A live countdown. Leak goes live in 3, 12, 40, 6. What the hell is this? He growled. The file's already distributed to nodes across Asia. Even if we take the server down, mirrors are auto-deploying in multiple countries. This is a dead man's switch. Minhyuk threw the tablet against the wall, shattering it. Find them. Shut it down. Use whatever leverage you have. Now. The assistant hesitated. "There's something else," she said. "One of the names in the file is yours." The city churned like a beast as night fell. Streets buzzed with tension. Comment threads ignited in every language. Who was behind the leak? Was it real? Would this end the empire or backfire into chaos? Inside Yoongi's studio, the final upload ticked past 99%. Jimin sat alone in the back corner, watching the progress bar, like it was his own pulse. He thought of the rehearsal room, the blood, the silence. He thought of the boy from the first video, the one who vanished. He thought of Jungkook. His phone buzzed. From Jungkook. "Don't do it. Let me talk to you first, please. 1 hour." He stared at the message. The upload hit 100%. Junji turned. "We're live. Too late for goodbyes. Too late for second thoughts." The world was about to know everything. And no one, not even Jimin, knew who would survive it. The world didn't sleep that night. At 2:00 a.m. KST, the leak detonated across every social platform like a digital nuke within 3 minutes. The videos, emails, financial records, and audio files from Jimin's drive were being translated in real time, dissected by fans, legal experts, and journalists from Seoul to Stockholm. Headlines screamed in every language. Entertainment empire tied to disappearances. Black budget trainee programs. Jeon Min-yook implicated in idol suppression scandal. Park Jimin break silence. Files reveal disturbing pattern in K-pop industry. By 2:10 a.m., the servers were under siege. Attempts to scrub the files. DMCA strikes. Anonymous counter-strikes. Even major news outlets hesitated to cover it in full out of fear or because they were on someone's payroll. But it didn't matter. The story had already escaped the cage. And in the middle of it, Jimin sat in the dark. Yoongi's studio was a fortress of flickering monitors, fan-subbed videos, media panic, and scrambled phone calls. Taehyung sat by the window, knees pulled to his chest, watching the chaos unfold on Twitter through cracked knuckles. Jimin had gone quiet. His phone buzzed again. From Jungkook. "You said you wanted truth. This isn't truth. This is war." Jimin's thumb hovered over the keyboard, but he didn't reply. Not yet. Not until he understood why the rage didn't feel like relief. The files had been out for less than an hour, and already, 2 companies had publicly severed ties with Jeon Min-yook. The Ministry of Culture was reviewing the documents for possible criminal investigation. And 3 trending hashtags had Jimin's name stapled beside words like whistleblower, traitor, and hero. He was a symbol now, and a target. The door slammed open. Jungkook, out of breath, hair wild. He looked like he'd run through traffic to get here. Yoongi stood, defensive. "How did you find this place?" "I have trackers on Jimin's burner, Sim," Jungkook snapped. "I put them there after Busan, in case something like this ever happened." Jimin stood slowly. "So you didn't trust me?" "I didn't trust the world around you." The 2 locked eyes. There was heat. And something else. Something far older than this mess. "You said you wanted to protect the group," Jimin said. "So did I. I just did it differently." Jungkook's voice shook. "You blew up everything we built." "No," Jimin said, stepping forward. "They did. I just showed everyone the floor was already burning." "You didn't just show it," Jungkook growled. "You set it on fire. Do you know how many careers will end because of this? How many kids will lose their dream because the industry collapses under this scandal?" Jimin's expression cracked. "And how many kids disappeared for your dreams to survive?" Silence. A thunderous kind. "I know you think you did the right thing," Jungkook said quietly. "But you've made enemies we can't outrun." "Good," Jimin whispered. "Let them come." Jungkook looked at him like he didn't recognize the person in front of him, like this wasn't the boy who used to fall asleep on his shoulder in Vans, who used to cry into his chest after hard stages, who used to write lyrics on napkins just to make him laugh. Then, Yoongi's burner phone lit up. Block number. 1 word. Run. The lights went out. Everything plunged into black. Taehyung cursed, stumbling back from the window. Jimin grabbed the flash drive, even though it was already uploaded. He didn't trust the cloud. Not anymore. The sound of tires screeching echoed outside. Yoongi ripped open a floor panel, revealing a hidden stairwell. "Go, now." They didn't argue. Down the steps, into a labyrinth of underground tunnels, old delivery routes beneath Itaewon, mostly forgotten. Footsteps overhead, men shouting, flashlights sweeping. Jimin ran. So did Jungkook. Where does this lead? Taehyung gasped. An old printing press near the Han River, Yoongi said. But we won't make it if they cut the exits. Behind them, a door slammed. Someone had found the stairwell. Jimin turned a corner and stopped cold. Standing there was a man in a black jacket, face partially hidden. I helped you once, the man said. Now you help me. He held out a second flash drive. What is it? Jimin asked. Everything that comes after the truth. And before Jimin could say anything else, the man disappeared into the dark. Yoongi yanked Jimin's sleeve. Move! They burst out into a crumbling alley behind the old press. The rain had started to fall again. In the distance, sirens. Helicopters. Media vans. They were no longer underground. They were exposed. And the second drive pulsed in Jimin's palm like a living thing. Later that night, after the group scattered to safe houses, Jungkook stayed behind. Jimin found him on the roof, staring out over the city. He didn't say anything at first. Then, I still love you, you know, Jungkook said, barely audible. Even after all this, Jimin closed his eyes. I loved you when you left me in that room, he replied, and I hated you for not dragging me out of it. Neither moved, but something between them shifted, not healed, but seen. And below them, the city trembled, not because of idols, but because the illusion was cracking. And the truth was louder than any song ever sung. Seoul was choking, not on smog, but on truth. By dawn, the leak had triggered a chain reaction no one could control. News anchors couldn't finish their scripts without stuttering. Corporate stock was hemorrhaging. Fans were rioting outside entertainment agencies, their glow sticks replaced with signs that read, "Where are the missing? Not your puppets. Jimin, we believe you." And somewhere far from it all, in an abandoned countryside villa once owned by a producer who retired mysteriously in 2020, Jimin sat at a dusty table with the second flash drive. Yoongi was across from him, reassembling a burner laptop with the casual urgency of a surgeon. Who was he? Jimin asked for the fifth time. The guy in the tunnel. I don't know, Yoongi said. But I've seen him before. When? Yoongi didn't look up. The night we signed our revised contracts in 2021. He was standing outside the building. Just watching. I thought he was press. Jimin looked at the flash drive like it might bite. You don't have to open it now, Yoongi said. We can wait for the others. No, Jimin muttered. If this is what he said it is, we can't wait anymore. He plugged it in. The screen came to life. No documents, no spreadsheets, just one folder titled The Quiet Ones. Inside were videos, surveillance, clips stitched together like a timeline. The first one showed a trainee female, this time being yelled at in a rehearsal room. Her face was blurred. The voice wasn't. It was Jeon Minhyuk. Your parents signed the NDA. You belong to us. If you want to sing, you do it our way. If not, go back to Daegu and rot with your failures. Jimin swallowed hard. Another clip played. A boardroom. Men laughing. Champagne. One of them, the CEO of a sister agency, lifted a glass and said, "We weed out the weak. The ones who survive, they'll make billions. The rest are just noise." Noise. Like what they had called Jimin when he refused to fall in line. One by one, the videos unfolded a web of systemic abuse, coercion, and silencing. Not just at Minhyuk's company, everywhere. A sprawling, silent empire. And then came the last clip. Jimin leaned in, his fingers clenched. It was a private conversation, clearly recorded without consent. Minhyuk's voice again, older now. You think idols are chosen for their talent? No. They're chosen because they're moldable, beautiful, desperate. You build them up, and if they break good, that means they were never meant to last. There was a pause. Then a second voice spoke. Jungkook, you're wrong. They were never the problem. You were. Jimin froze. The audio ended. He replayed it. Again. Again. The voice was unmistakable. Yoongi was staring. Did you know about this? No, Jimin whispered. But he did. 2 hours later, Jungkook appeared at the villa. No security, no car, just a hoodie and a storm in his eyes. Jimin met him at the door. "You had recordings," he said. From inside, Jungkook stepped inside without answering. Yoongi folded his arms. "You gave us one hell of a performance, playing the loyal son." "I was loyal," Jungkook snapped, "until I realized loyalty to a monster is still complicity." Jimin handed him the laptop. "You recorded Minhyuk. Why?" Jungkook took a long breath. "Because I knew someday you'd come back. And if you did, I'd need proof I hadn't completely abandoned you." Jimin's voice cracked. "You still did." Jungkook's face twisted. "You don't think I regret it every night?" They stared at each other. Two men standing in the ruins of what once was love. Then Jungkook said, quieter now, "I started recording him after I saw what they did to trainee 27. Yoongi blinked. "You know their names?" "No," Jungkook said. "Because they erased them. All I ever found was numbers, dates, disappearances. I couldn't save anyone, not even you." Jimin shook his head. "But you kept the evidence." "Yeah," Jungkook said. "I kept the truth and did nothing with it, which makes me worse." "No," Jimin said, looking down at the screen. "You did something. You helped me finish it." That night, they sent the second leak. It was different. Slower. More methodical. It didn't explode on social media. It leaked into legal channels, into investigative journalists, into offices that couldn't be bribed. This wasn't about headlines anymore. This was about justice. And while the city raged and burned and screamed, Jimin watched from the villa. He didn't feel victorious. He felt empty. "Will we be okay?" he asked Jungkook later under the stars. Jungkook didn't lie. "I don't think okay exists anymore. But maybe we'll be honest." They sat in silence. Then Jimin asked, "Did you mean it?" "Mean what?" "What you said. That you still love me." Jungkook turned his head, eyes wet. "Every second since you left." Jimin didn't answer. He leaned his head on Jungkook's shoulder. Just once. Just for a moment. Not forgiveness. Not absolution. Just memory. And somewhere far away, Jeon Minhyuk stared at a subpoena delivered to his front gate. The empire was crumbling. The idols had stopped singing. But their silence was no longer obedience. It was war. The cameras were already rolling when Jeon Minhyuk stepped into the courtroom. He wore a muted gray suit, perfectly pressed, but nothing about him looked composed. His eyes darted too quickly. His jaw clenched a beat too long. He kept adjusting his tie, the same one he wore to award shows, as if trying to summon that old power, the illusion of control. It didn't work. Because this wasn't a red carpet. This was his reckoning. Outside, the streets swelled with protesters, former trainees, fans, whistleblowers, even parents. The barricades couldn't contain the fury. Signs read, "You can't silence us. Idols are not currency. Where is trainee 27? Inside, the tension was unbearable. Reporters scribbled like mad. Security flanked every door. The judge's gavel dropped like a hammer. The trial began. And in the back row, wearing a black hoodie and a quiet fire in his eyes, sat Jimin. No mask. No disguise. He wanted Minhyuk to see him. The prosecution opened with the leaked files, the ledger of black trainees, the audio recordings of boardroom conversations, the surveillance footage, and then they played it. The voice. That voice. You build them up, and if they break good, that means they were never meant to last. Minhyuk flinched when he heard his own words played back to him like a weapon. The courtroom murmured. The judge banged his gavel twice to silence them. In the witness box, the prosecution called their first live testimony. Jungkook. Gasps rippled through the room. Minhyuk's eyes snapped toward the aisle as his own son approached the stand. Jungkook sat down, lifted his chin, and looked directly at his father. "Do you swear to tell the truth?" the bailiff asked. "I do." The prosecutor stepped forward. "Mr. Jeon, when did you first become aware of irregularities within your father's company?" Jungkook exhaled slowly. "Not at first. Not during our debut years. We were too busy surviving. But later, when Jimin was removed, when others started disappearing, I started noticing things. Files that were wiped, schedules that didn't match, trainees that weren't on any official roster. Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Jungkook's voice wavered. "Because he's my father." He turned to Minhyuk. "And because I was afraid of you." Minhyuk didn't blink. but his jaw flexed. You recorded him. You submitted those recordings to the court. Why? Because silence makes me complicit. And I won't protect a system that chews people up and calls it legacy. Min-hyuk finally spoke, standing abruptly. You ungrateful child. The courtroom erupted. The judge shouted for order. Jungkook remained still. I protected you, Min-hyuk hissed. Everything you are, everything you have, is because of me. No, Jungkook replied. Steady now. Everything I have is in spite of you. The judge slammed the gavel. Mr. Jeon, if you interrupt again, I will have you removed. Min-hyuk sat, eyes burning. The next witness was called Park Jimin. He walked to the stand with the poise of someone who had died once and come back harder. The courtroom held its breath. Even the cameras felt like they stopped blinking. The prosecutor asked, Mr. Park, can you describe the events of October 19th, 2022? Jimin didn't flinch. That was the day I was locked in the rehearsal room. I had discovered an unauthorized file showing off the book's finances. Bonuses to certain board members tied to the suppression of whistleblowing artists. When I confronted them, they said I was overreacting. He looked at Min-hyuk. He told me to shut up and dance. I told him I wouldn't. What happened next? Jimin's hands gripped the edges of the chair. Two men came into the room. Security. They pinned me to the floor. I hit my head. I remember screaming. I remember blood. I remember seeing the cameras in the corner and thinking, this is how it ends. His voice broke. I thought no one would ever know. The prosecutor nodded. But now they do. Yes, Jimin whispered. Now they do. Later, in recess, the media swarmed outside the courthouse. Jimin and Jungkook stepped into the blinding sun together, side by side. A reporter pushed through the crowd. Jimin, do you forgive Jeon, Min-hyuk? He paused, looked at the sea of microphones, flashing lights, shaking hands. Then he said, forgiveness is personal. Justice is public. And today, we're here for justice. They pushed through the crowd and into the car. The doors shut. Inside, silence. Then Jimin turned to Jungkook. You didn't have to testify. Yes, I did. A long pause. I was scared, Jungkook said quietly. Not just of him, of losing you, of what it meant to stand against something that made me. I get it, Jimin said. But standing against it is how we remake it. Their eyes met. A knock on the window startled them. Taehyung, smiling grimly, holding a flash drive. Another leak? Jimin asked, opening the door. No, Taehyung said, sliding in. This one's personal. It's about trainee 27. Jungkook's breath caught. Taehyung plugged it into the car system. A video played. Security footage. A hospital. A teenager confused, scared, bruised, being signed into a psychiatric facility under a fake name. The missing trainee. He hadn't disappeared. He had been hidden. The screen paused on a signature. Jeon Min-hyuk's. Jimin leaned back in his seat. Let's bring him home. And outside, the protesters sang not songs from an album, but the names of those who were silenced. This wasn't the industry anymore. This was a movement. The room smelled like bleach, old metal, and something softer, something almost innocent. Lavender, maybe. Like someone was trying to make the place feel less like a prison and more like home, but nothing could cover the scent of forgetting. They walked through the hallway in silence, their footsteps echoing off pale green walls that hadn't seen sunlight in years. The psychiatric facility was deep in the countryside, off the grid, private, discreet. Too discreet. Jimin kept his eyes forward, fists clenched in his hoodie pockets. Jungkook walked beside him, jaw tight. Behind them, Taehyung held the hospital documents, still warm from the printer. Yoongi was outside, keeping the press away with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd spent years hiding bodies metaphorically, and maybe not. The nurse led them to a door. Room 12B. He doesn't speak much, she said softly. He's stable, but detached. We thought he was a trauma case, dropped off by a guardian. We didn't know he was... You weren't supposed to know, Jimin cut in. The nurse nodded. Do you want to go in alone? No, Jungkook said, already reaching for the handle. He's not alone anymore. The room was small, sterile. A narrow bed, a shelf of books, a window with steel bars. And there he was, trainee 27, sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring at the wall, headphones on. He looked up slowly. His face was thinner, hair longer, uneven. There was a tiredness in his eyes that didn't belong to a boy barely 20. But he was alive. "Hi," Jimin said gently. The boy blinked, took off his headphones. "You're Jimin," he said. From the group, Jungkook stepped forward. "You remember us?" The boy smiled faintly. "They tried to erase you, but I never forgot." Jimin sat beside him. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated, then whispered. "Seojin." A name finally given. A ghost finally real. Taehyung knelt in front of him, eyes brimming. "Sojin, we're gonna get you out of here. You don't belong in this place. You were taken. You were—" "I know," Seojin interrupted. "I remember everything." The room fell still. Seojin looked at Jimin. "The night they sent you away, I saw it. I tried to help. I told someone. And then I woke up here." Jungkook sat down slowly. "How long?" 3 years, Sojin said. "They gave me pills, told me I was sick, that I made it up." He smiled bitterly. "But I always remembered you screaming." Jimin's throat tightened. "We're going to tell your story, Seojin. Not just yours, all of them." Seojin nodded, then paused. "I recorded something." They stared. "I used an old MP3 player. Before they locked my things, I hid it in the spine of a book." He stood slowly, walked to the shelf, pulled out a copy of The Little Prince, and cracked the cover. A tiny black recorder fell into his palm. Taehyung took it like it was a holy object. "What's on it?" Seojin looked at the floor. "Conversations. Doctors. Someone came here years ago. Paid them to keep me sedated. I heard names." Jungkook's hand shook as he took the device. "Jeon Minyuk." Seojin nodded. And another voice. "A woman." Jimin frowned. "What woman?" "I don't know," Seojin said. "But she called herself the gatekeeper." They looked at each other, confused, uneasy. Taehyung broke the silence. "We need to get this out. Tonight." "No," Jungkook said. "Not just leak it. We take Sojin with us. We make him speak. On camera. His face. His words." "Is he ready?" Jimin asked. Seojin looked up. "I've been waiting 3 years for someone to ask me if I wanted to speak. Yes, I'm ready." By midnight, the recording had been decrypted. The voices were clear. Minyuk, doctors, administrators, and the woman. Her voice was smooth, older, calm, but beneath it, power. The kind you didn't earn, the kind you inherited. "She'll cause problems," she said in the recording. "The boy's memories are incomplete, but if he starts piecing them together, we'll have another liability. Keep him quiet. Keep him compliant," Minyuk replied. "And if the others come looking, we'll bury them too." Silence. Then her voice again. "No one touches the dynasty." Jungkook hit pause. "Who the hell is she?" Yoongi leaned back, arms crossed. "I think we're not just dealing with Minyuk anymore." Jimin nodded. "She's above him." Taehyung stood. "Then we go higher. This doesn't end with him. It ends with all of them." The next day, a live stream went live across every major platform. Jimin sat beside Seojin, their hands nearly touching. Seojin told his story. No theatrics, no drama, just facts, just memory. And people listened. The silence that had kept the industry insulated cracked like glass. Lawsuits were filed. Investigations reopened. Government officials named. And in the shadows of a skyscraper, a woman in a white suit watched it all unfold on a private monitor. "The gatekeeper," she smiled. "Let them climb," she said to her assistant. "It only makes the fall more painful." Jimin didn't know her name yet, but he would, because the Empire wasn't done fighting. And neither was he. It started with a car explosion in Gangnam. No one died, just a warning. A private security consultant hired by a media company who'd agreed to publish Seojin's full statement. The bomb was planted beneath the chassis. Precision work, not messy, just loud enough to freeze everyone in the industry mid-step. The message was clear. This was no longer about music, fame, or scandals. This was about legacy, power, control. In a heavily secured apartment in Mapo, Jimin paced the floor like a man trying to keep a ghost from catching him. Yoongi sat in the corner, dismantling a burner phone with his pocket knife. Jungkook was on the phone with the UN's Cultural Rights Division, speaking in low, clipped tones. Taehyung stood by the window with binoculars, scanning the skyline. And Seojin was writing. At the center of the chaos, the boy who once had no name now held a pen like it was a weapon. "What are you doing?" Jimin asked, pausing beside him. Seojin looked up. "A statement. My real one. Something that doesn't just expose what they did to me, but who let them do it." Taehyung turned, suspicious. "You remember more?" "I remember her," Seojin whispered. Everyone in the room froze. "The woman," he said. "She came to the facility once, when I was lucid. She brought flowers, said she was sorry I had to be here, but it was necessary for the greater good." "What did she look like?" Jimin asked, voice tight. Seojin shut his notebook and stood, walked to the shelf where Yoongi kept old press magazines, flipped through one, found her. He pointed. Her name was Han Myung-hee, former Minister of Culture, silent shareholder in 4 entertainment agencies, board member of a major broadcasting network. "And she was my mentor," Jungkook said quietly. Jimin turned sharply. "What?" "When I debuted," Jungkook continued, "Minhyuk introduced me to her. She said she could shape my image, that she had connections no one else did. She always spoke in riddles, said idols were more useful when they didn't know who owned them. She's the gatekeeper," Yoongi muttered. "She's the one pulling strings above Minhyuk. That's why none of this collapsed years ago. And she's about to realize we've cut the strings," Taehyung said. But Jimin didn't look victorious. He looked haunted. "She's not going to let this end with a press release. She's going to retaliate." They all knew it. The next day, it began. Fake headlines flooded the internet. Jimin accused of falsifying evidence. Sojin's story full of inconsistencies. Jungkook's testimony under review after conflict of interest revealed. Old edited clips resurfaced, showing Jimin allegedly berating staff. Fabricated DMs between Jungkook and journalists. Altered CCTV footage claiming Seojin had escaped from the facility after a mental breakdown. It was psychological warfare. And it was working. Sponsors began pulling out. Fans turned on each other. The media refused to cover the new evidence without a government sign-off. Inside the apartment, Jimin watched the numbers drop in real-time views, shares, credibility. "They're going to erase us again," Seojin said softly. "A second time," Jungkook stood. "Not if we go straight to her," Jimin blinked. "What are you saying? We confront Han Myung-hee, on camera, live. No scripts, no intermediaries, just her and us. Let the world watch her try to lie." "That's suicide," Yoongi snapped. "It's strategy," Jungkook replied. "She thrives in shadows. We drag her into the light." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "She won't agree to that." "She will," Sojin said, surprising them all. "If I send the invitation," Jimin shook his head. "Seojin?" "No," the boy said, firm for the first time. "She doesn't fear you. She doesn't fear Jungkook. But me? I'm supposed to be dead, forgotten. If I show up in her inbox, she'll want to clean up the mess herself." They all looked at him and agreed. The email was sent that night. To Han Myung-hee. From Kim Seoin. Subject: You remember me. Let's talk. You choose the place. I'll bring the cameras. No response. For 24 hours. Then a reply. Subject: I never forget my children. I'll see you tomorrow. Come alone. But I know you won't. That's okay. Neither will I. The meeting took place in a private art gallery near Namsan Tower. Cold marble floors, abstract installations, soundproof rooms, cameras hidden behind sculptures. Jimin walked in first, dressed in black, eyes guarded. Seojin followed, notebook in hand. Jungkook and Taehyung trailed behind with a discreet film crew, streaming everything through a private server to Yoongi, who sat in a van nearby, monitoring transmission. And then she arrived. Han Myung-hee, elegant, impeccably dressed, and smiling like none of this mattered. You've grown, she said to Seojin. They said you wouldn't. Let's skip the performance, Jimin said. Han's gaze slid to him. Ah, the fallen angel. Still so dramatic. You sedated a child, Jungkook snapped. You silenced dozens of victims. You orchestrated disappearances. And you think a camera will change anything? She said, unbothered. No, Seojin said. But your confession might. She raised an eyebrow. And then Sojin opened his notebook. Inside was a small transmitter, already live. My statement is being recorded, transcribed, and if anything happens to me again, every politician, CEO, and agency tied to you will be named. She paused, then laughed. You think this is about justice, she said. But this is about narrative. You've won the emotional battle, yes. Poor Sojin, betrayed idols, tears and truth. But you'll lose the war. Why? Jimin asked. She leaned in. Because the public doesn't want reality. They want fantasy, and I control fantasy. No, Jimin said. You used to. He stepped forward. You taught us how to lie, how to smile while bleeding, but now we're using your tools against you. Her smile slipped. Just slightly. That's not how this ends, she warned. It already has, Sojin said. Your kingdom is built on silence, but we don't fear our voices anymore. She turned to leave. I'll see you all again, she said. When the next scandal breaks. When they forget your names, and they will. Then we'll be there, Jimin said, reminding them. That night, the full footage aired. Every word, every look, every threat. The nation watched. So did the world. Han Myung-hee's influence cracked like glass under a hammer. Investigations began. Arrests followed. And in the streets, the chants changed. No longer just protests. Now, a chorus. Not for idols, but for survivors, for those who stayed, for those who disappeared, and for the boy who came back with nothing but his memory and made it everything. The studio lights flickered to life one by one, casting a cold white glow over the empty stage. It was the same broadcast hall where Jimin had once collapsed during a performance years ago, when his ribs were bruised, his throat raw from forced rehearsals, and no one dared ask why the smiles were shaking. Now it was silent. No music, no applause, just echoes of what used to be. Jimin stood at the center, staring at the rows of empty seats, rehearsing lines he hadn't written down. This wasn't a concert. It wasn't a comeback. It was closure. He adjusted the mic stand and whispered into the void. Are you watching? Behind the curtain, Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She will be, he said. You mean Han Myung-hee? No, Jungkook said. The world. The cameras were already rolling. The live stream had been counting down for hours. Fans knew something was coming. They'd been waiting. The last statement. The final message. The last piece of a scandal that had broken the strongest names in the industry and turned idols into revolutionaries. And this time, no one was hiding. Yoongi appeared with a clipboard, nodding to the crew. 5 minutes. Sojin entered next, dressed not in makeup or styling but in his own skin. The same hoodie he'd worn when he walked out of that facility. Jimin turned to him. Are you ready? Sojin's eyes didn't flinch. I've been waiting half my life for this. Jungkook stepped forward. Once you say it, there's no going back. I don't want to go back, Sojin said. There's nothing there. Yoongi's earpiece crackled. We're live in 10. They all stood there, in the final moment before everything would change again. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Did you ever imagine it ending like this? Jungkook gave a tired smile. I didn't think we'd survive long enough to get an ending at all. Do you regret it? I regret not standing beside you the first time. I'll never regret standing beside you now. Then the lights dimmed, and the red light on the camera blinked to life. They were live. Jimin stepped forward, looking directly into the lens. My name is Park Jimin, he began, voice steady, and I was once told my worth depended on silence. That if I wanted to succeed, I had to smile through pain, obey without question, and protect the system even when it destroyed the people inside it. He paused. No script, no cue cards, just truth. For a long time, I believed that. I watched friends disappear. I saw contracts signed in fear. I watched the people I loved become hollow just to survive. And I said nothing. A breath, until they took Sojin. Sojin stepped forward. No more anonymity, no more hiding, just him. They took my name, he said. They told me my memories were a lie. They put me in a facility and fed me pills because I remembered something I wasn't supposed to. I remembered them hurting Jimin. I remembered the ledger, the missing kids, the silence. The camera cut to Jungkook. I was raised to be the perfect product, he said. But I'm not a product. I'm a person. and I watched my own father orchestrate cruelty and call it excellence. I let it happen until I couldn't anymore. Yoongi, always quiet, finally stepped into frame. I stayed silent because I was tired. But now, I'm tired of being silent. Taehyung followed. I used to think protecting the group meant protecting the company. But I've learned that protecting the truth is the only way to protect each other. Jimin stepped back to the mic. This industry is not just about entertainment. It's about power. It's about who controls the narrative, who decides who gets to be famous, who gets to be forgotten, who gets to live. A beat passed. Then he said it. But we've taken the narrative back. The screen behind them lit up. Images flashed Seojin's intake forms, footage of Han Myung-hee's meeting, financial documents linking her to agencies across the continent, audio files, names, dates, proof, and finally, a single sentence, projected in red. The industry belongs to its artists. Then silence. No applause. No dramatic music. Just the weight of it. The stream cut, and the world reacted. It took less than an hour for the government to issue a statement. Investigations were escalated. Han Myung-hee was removed from 3 boards that same evening. Agencies released apologies. Some shut down entirely. And for the first time in decades, the term idol meant something different. It meant survivor. It meant fighter. It meant truth-teller. That night, Jimin stood on the rooftop of the same building where everything had once started. Jungkook found him there. I kept thinking, Jungkook said, that we'd wake up and none of this would have mattered, that the machine would swallow us again. Jimin turned to him. Maybe it still will, but at least now we fought back. Do you think they'll let you come back to the stage? I don't know, Jimin said. Maybe the stage is different now. Jungkook looked up at the stars. You know, when I debuted, I thought being famous would make me feel seen. Did it? No, but this does. They stood in silence. Not as performers, not as pawns, just as people. Then Jimin said, I want to make music again, but this time, not for charts, not for the company, just for us. Jungkook smiled. Then let's do it. One song. Just us. Jimin looked at him. No more secrets? None. And in the dark, their hands found each other. Not as lovers, not as symbols, but as survivors of a storm they weren't supposed to outlive. The next morning, a new post appeared on Jimin's channel. No title, no announcement, just a black screen with one message. To the ones who were silenced, we heard you. Then music, raw, real, unpolished, and a voice, Jimin's voice, singing not for the system, but against it. The song reached 10 million streams in the first hour, but that wasn't what mattered. It wasn't polished, mixed, or mastered. No high-budget music video, no flashy choreography, no official backing. It was just Jimin's voice, raspy, bruised, alive. Accompanied by a single guitar, a trembling synth, and silence thick enough to remember. People didn't listen to it like a hit. They listened like a confession. But behind the beauty, behind the screen, soul had not settled. Power doesn't die quietly. It claws. The week following the release was a war waged in headlines, backroom meetings, and private threads on encrypted forums. Some executives resigned, some vanished, some tried to retaliate with legal action, but their credibility had already crumbled beneath months of leaked corruption and international scrutiny. Still, not everyone had fallen. And as Jimin stood in the apartment balcony watching the sun rise over a city changed forever, a message buzzed on his burner phone. Unknown number. You exposed the structure, but you forgot the foundation. Meet me. One last name, one last truth. You decide if it stays buried. Attached was a location, a cemetery. Jungkook found him 10 minutes later, still staring at the screen. You're not going alone, he said. Jimin didn't argue. They arrived before noon. The cemetery was small, tucked behind a temple, quiet but not peaceful. The wind whispered through the trees like it had secrets to tell but didn't dare. A man stood near one of the headstones, dressed in a simple coat, hair graying at the temples, holding a cane like he hadn't yet earned it. He didn't introduce himself. I'm the brother of trainee 12, he said. Real name, Kang Hanuel. You won't find his stage name anywhere. He never got one. Jimin froze. Jungkook narrowed his eyes. What happened to him? He found out what Seojin found out, back in 2018. But unlike Seojin, he didn't scream. He documented. He wrote everything down. He had a list: names, transactions, hidden facilities, the real foundation, the offshore accounts, the political donors, the media plants. Jimin's voice was dry. And then the man looked at the grave. He disappeared. 2 weeks later, they found him in a river outside of Incheon. Ruled it a suicide. Jungkook flinched. It wasn't. No, it wasn't. The man reached into his coat and handed Jimin a sealed envelope. It was old, yellowed, his name written on the front in block letters. Park Jimin. Only if it's safe. Jimin opened it slowly. Inside were photocopied pages. Dozens. Hanel's journal. Painstakingly handwritten accounts of everything: trainee abuse, financial fraud, psychological manipulation, emergency drills in case of media exposure, even scripts fed to idols for fake scandals meant to distract the public. And at the bottom, one name circled over and over. Chairman Si Jun-won. Jimin's knees nearly gave out. Chairman Seo. The philanthropist. The smiling face behind the biggest music conglomerate in Asia. The one who'd given him his first performance trophy. The one the world believed was the savior of the K-pop machine. Impossible, Jungkook said, voice shaking. He's the reason we had a career. He donated to mental health programs for trainees. He funded the cover-ups, the man said. The gatekeeper? Han Myung-hee? She worked for him. She took the fall. He stays clean. Jimin stared down at the pages. This can't be real. It's real, the man said. But the question is, what are you going to do with it? Back at the apartment, the atmosphere was dense. Yoongi sat with the documents laid out on the floor, eyes scanning every line, cross-referencing names with previously leaked files. It connects, he muttered. Every payment, every silent scandal, every missing trainee. It all traces back to him. But we don't have proof he ordered anything. Just implications. Taehyung sat on the edge of the couch, running a hand through his hair. If we go after him and we're wrong. We're not, Sojin said. I remember his voice. He came to the facility. I didn't know who he was, but now I do. Jimin stood in the center, the pages of Hanel's journal in his hands. Heart pounding. Do you think this is why they let Myung-hee fall? He asked quietly. So he could stay standing? Yes, Jungkook said. They sacrificed her to protect him. The real architect. Taehyung looked up. So what now? Jimin met his gaze. We go after him. All the way up. No more masks, no more leaks. We go live again, but this time, it's a reckoning. They called it the last broadcast. Jimin didn't perform. No music. No sentimental background track. Just him. A chair. A light. And the truth. He began with Kang Hanel, a name never spoken in public before. He told the story. Showed the journal. Read the entries. He showed Seojin's sketches of the facility layout confirmed by government architecture records. Then, he dropped the final bomb. A recording recovered from the private server of a now-defunct label audio of Chairman Seo speaking to board members, laughing. If they scream, we spin it. If they cry, we sell it. These kids don't break. They're built to shatter beautifully. It was irrefutable. And by midnight, every major news outlet had picked it up. Chairman Seo was unreachable. His team issued a statement calling the broadcast slanderous and unverifiable. But the world had changed too much to be silenced again. Former trainees began coming forward. Journalists picked up Hanul's trail. Politicians demanded full transparency. Jimin didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply said, at the end of the stream, I hope this is the last time anyone has to fight this hard just to be heard. The next day, Chairman Seo was found trying to board a private plane out of the country. He was arrested on charges of obstruction, conspiracy, and abuse of minors. It wasn't over, but it had begun. And in the quiet of his room, Jimin finally opened a letter that had been buried under the floorboard of the studio where he once rehearsed. It was addressed to him, from Hanul. It read, If you're reading this, I didn't make it, but maybe you will. Don't let them tell you your voice is too soft. Sometimes whispers bring down empires. Jimin closed his eyes, then whispered, We heard you. And somewhere, the industry finally listened.